So what do you want to talk about?
Well,
black ass.
Now let's be nice.
All right.
Let's be nice.
Some black anal.
Let's. I'll talk about. I'll talk about meeting up with Nathan from Kentucky last night. Mm-hmm. Megadeth is doing like a short run over the weekend, I guess, and they played here in the Hammond area. There's a casino here called the Horseshoe Casino. It was originally owned by Binion's, I guess.
Okay.
And they sold it out to one of the bigger conglomerates. But regardless of that, they've got a big concert venue here.
Sure.
Strangely enough, it's just called The Venue.
The name of the place is called The Venue?
That's the name of the place.
Man, they worked hard on that.
They did.
Wow.
Anyway, this venue, for some of the shows that they have there, they have seating.
Okay.
But for this thing, being it's Megadeth, the whole floor was just wide open.
And empty. I mean...
It was just completely just wide open. No seating. The only seating was either up in the loges,
right, or
up in the upper balcony.
Okay.
But the whole floor, there were no seating.
Okay.
Because, of course, you got your angry white males who want to pretend to be moshers.
Right, sure.
And they had to have a mosh pit in the middle.
Wow.
So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I've got to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
But anyway, Megadeth played at this place, The Venue, and the best I could estimate as far as the crowd was concerned,
sure,
I'm going to say that there was probably about 600 people there.
Oof. And how many do you think it holds?
Well, without seating,
yeah, I'm
going to say that it probably holds. I'm going to say about 2,500.
Ooh.
2,500 to 3,000. I'm guesstimating.
Okay.
So this place was about 1/3 full.
Wow, that's not many.
Yeah. Tickets were about $40 a pop,
and that's why it was so empty.
So 600 at $40 a piece.
Right.
How much is that?
$24,000.
$24,000.
Yeah.
So that may have covered Megadeth. I don't know what their asking price is.
Yeah, I don't know.
So they may have broken even on that, but this is a casino event.
Yeah, so they don't care.
So the casino, pays for this.
Right.
Strangely enough, though, this room is. I'm gonna say that this room is. I'm trying to make a comparison to. It's probably about as big as the main room at the Agora.
Okay.
What do you think that holds?
2,500 to 3,000.
Right. That's about the size of this place.
Okay.
Strangely enough, you know who they're getting in there?
Who?
Journey.
Really? At a 3,000 seater?
Yeah,
bro?
Journey.
Jesus.
They're playing there in September.
That'll sell out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easily. But the tickets are outrageous.
How much are the tickets?
They're like about $150 a piece.
Fuck that. For fake Journey?
Yeah.
No way.
Yep, because a friend of mine here bought them.
Can I post this crowd picture?
Sure, go right ahead.
I'm going to put it on the CMS Facebook right now. All right, go ahead.
And, Journey is playing there. Steely Dan is playing there.
Steely Dan?
Steely Dan is playing there.
Jesus, Steely Dan still can do 10,000 people at 150 a ticket.
That's my point.
That's crazy.
I know. Let's see, who else is a big name? I don't know much about this guy. I just know that he's hot right now, and he's kind of made the headline. So as far as his catalog of music is concerned, the only draw that I see that this guy would have is only because of his popularity right now, and that would be that what's that guy Thicke? What's his name?
Robin Thicke?
Robin Thicke.
Yeah.
He's going to be there.
Oh, good. Can't wait to not pay any attention to that.
Right. But let's see, who else did they have coming up real soon? But
it's like that casino's just trying to get people in the door to fucking raid the card tables.
Yeah. And then, of course, Judas Priest is playing there.
Right.
So, But anyway, there was about 600 people there at my best estimate.
Wow.
Good show, though. Really good show.
Yeah, well, they always put on a decent show if you like bands that stand around. I mean, they play well.
Well, here, and that's funny you would bring that up.
Okay.
Because I have not seen this lineup
Sure.
with Chris Broderick.
Yeah, I have once. That guy can rip.
That guy is absolutely amazing.
Who would you say is better, him or Friedman?
I would go with this
Chris Broderick?
Chris Broderick.
Wow. I don't know that I'd go that far.
Well, I'm just telling you, and this is the reason why. I'm not going with proficiency in the guitar.
Sure.
I'm going with crowd interaction.
Okay.
His stage presence.
Okay.
And basically the fact that he played all the leads.
Oh, really? Dave's not playing leads anymore?
Dave plays some of the signature leads.
Okay.
But Chris pretty much played all the leads, and Dave stood back and did rhythms.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Huh?
So when Dave wasn't up on the mic singing, he was basically standing back by the drum riser,
right,
playing the rhythms while Chris was up front ripping on the leads.
Nice. Hey, good for him.
And he's just a great showman.
Okay.
You know, and again, if you're asking me to compare Friedman to Chris's skill set, you know, I can't.
Close. Chris Broderick can play, man. He's a beast.
I'm not gonna make the assessment between the two, but I am gonna say, as far as his crowd interaction and his movement on the stage and just kind of making things exciting.
Sure.
He definitely was. He just looked like he is having the best time up there.
Sure.
And he plays those leads like he wrote them himself.
Nice. How about Ellefson? Is he running around?
Well, I'm going to get to that.
All right.
I watched Ellefson pretty close.
Yeah.
He just looks bored. I mean, he looked tired. He just kind of looked bored. It almost looked like it's just a job for him.
Well, it might be.
You know, and he had like no expression, didn't smile, wasn't like really into it. It's like when it was time for him to come up to the mic and add some background vocals or something, you know, he knew to step to the mic and sing, and then he'd step back, and then he'd just kind of thump his bass, and, you know, he just kind of looked tired.
Huh.
You know, he just, it's like, okay, it's another show.
All right, making my check.
That's kind of the way he looked.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean he didn't play well.
Right.
He just seemed bored.
Wow.
And then Dave, you know, Dave's Dave.
Right.
And he looked genuinely happy to be up there doing his Megadeth thing.
Well, God gave him the skills.
You know. But he, you know, if he suffered any kind of nerve damage to his hand, or, you know, anything that he's been known for in the last decade with you know, whatever, you would never know it.
Really?
The guy played well, sang well. He was acted like he was just like really into it. Talked to the crowd. Didn't come off like a cocky, arrogant asshole. He acted like, you know, I'm very appreciative of the people who came out tonight, you know.
Are you sure it was really him?
Yeah, believe me, it was. But I did, you know, their stage wasn't real elaborate,
right?
But they do use the multimedia lighted screenings in the back and stuff.
Sure.
And it fits for what they do.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be real over the top elaborate, you know, and the video that they played in accompaniment to the music and stuff was very well done.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'll give it to the house for the sound and everything. It was loud, but it wasn't enough to where it just was like a roaring sound. It was actually a very crisp sound. It was loud, but it was tolerable.
Sure.
And and I was only, I'd probably say no further than 20 feet from the stage.
Well, why would you be further back? Then you'd be standing by yourself.
Well, yeah. And I left the place and my ears weren't ringing, you know?
Then that's no good.
Well, it was actually a good experience.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, to the crowd.
Yeah.
You always get these guys who can't seem to manage personal space.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a guy standing in front of Nathan and myself.
Okay.
He kind of looked like Shrek.
Okay.
He had the bald head, no neck, just kind of like a a little tank. You know?
Okay.
And he had to. What was really funny though is whenever they got into playing one of their heavier jams or one of their heavier riffs.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who has to get up as close as he can to the back of the wall of the people that are closest to the stage.
Okay.
And he has to have both his hands thrusted up, giving the middle fingers.
Ugh.
He's one of those guys.
I hate those guys.
So he has to stand there with his arms up over his head, giving the middle fingers, and thrusting his hands forward and giving the middle fingers. But because he's so inebriated at this point, that whenever he thrusts his hands forward, it causes him to rock backwards to where he almost falls on his ass. But instead, because there are people behind him, he's falling into them.
Right. Oh, I'd let that big piece of shit fall right to the ground.
Well, every time he moved toward me, I would step aside.
Nice. And just let him fall backwards.
And so he came in and he ran into Nathan.
All right.
And Nathan said that he said something to him like he wanted to have like mosh with him.
Okay.
And he's like, you're a pretty good sized guy and you're kind of built beefy and stuff. He goes, why don't you just mosh with me, man? Like let's bang together, dude.
All right. No.
Well, if Nathan's listening, out to call in if he can. 800-497-5891. 800-497-5891.
Be honest, dude, because you've been with me to some shows. Is this the kind of guy I would have punched?
Who, Nathan?
No.
Oh, no, that guy? Oh, yeah.
I'd have punched him, right?
Oh, yeah. He's just one of these guys who, he's a weeble wobble. You know what I mean? He can't, he's so drunk.
Banging into everybody, doesn't give a fuck who's there.
Yeah. Because he can't.
Everybody's experience so that he can get his drunken ass off.
Yeah, basically, that's it.
Yeah, I'd have fucking smacked him silly.
Right. So, right in the middle of the floor, when they get into holy wars and peace sells, but who's buying? Well, then the angry 40-something white male crowd, they decide that they need to start a mosh pit.
Ugh, okay.
So what I don't get about the whole mosh pit thing, only just from watching what I'm watching because it was right there, right near me. What is it with these guys basically tripping around in like a bunny hop? You know what I mean?
That's that fucking new. That's like the new metal thing, and they're swinging their arms and shit.
But they get in a line and they're all hopping.
Yeah, the fucking organized circle jerk.
That's basically it.
Yeah, fucking faggy.
What is that?
You know what? It started with these new metal pussies. It started at a lot of punk shows,
right?
Like 15 years ago. But man, you go to any of these real new metal, the modern shit with the kids with the skinny jeans on.
Yeah.
All the faggots at those shows will do that.
What's funny is that these guys would be on the other side of the circle, and then they would. It's almost like that they were dodging traffic, like they would hip hop across the circle to the other side, And once they got to the other side, the other people would see them coming, and then they would turn around and push them back in and go the other direction.
Right.
It was just the most ridiculous thing I ever saw.
Ugh,
Hail and Kill, caller, you're on the air.
Hail and Kill, boys.
Hey, is it Nathan?
Yes.
Hey, what's up, Nathan?
Just up here at work tonight. So.
Oh, I hear you. Well, that guy that was in front of us last night with the red shirt and a shaved head.
It was very creepy.
What was he saying to you?
Well, he just kept wanting me to mosh. He kept butting into me, and then, like I said, at one point he kind of came up behind me and grabbed me around the shoulders, shoulder massaged me. I was like, "You're a big, strong guy. Come on, let's mosh."
And why didn't you just say, "Look, faggot, get off me"?
I didn't know. I mean, he was just stupid drunk. He wasn't being belligerent. He was just stupid. You know.
Yeah, but he's ruining your time.
It wasn't that bad. I mean, it was annoying, but it wasn't that bad. And you know,
that's like saying,
if you were there, Chris,
not
you probably
that
would have broke.
bad. At least you're not dead.
Chris, you would have broke his face probably, but you know, I'm just not a violent person.
I don't put up with that shit.
Listen to Megadeth.
Neeley, weren't you with me once when we saw Megadeth, and it was Megadeth, Machine Head, and Black Sabbath, or Heaven and Hell, or whatever it was? Weren't you with me?
No, that was when they were in Cleveland.
Yeah, and all I know is we had one of those guys. They had chairs at that show.
Yeah, you told the story on the show, but I was not with you.
Oh, I thought it was you that was with me.
I think, wasn't that the one where Ripper was there backstage and all that? Yeah. See, you told me the story, but I wasn't there.
Well, we had one of those guys that, you know, decides that he's going to face, you know, like he's on the stage, even though he's just standing on his chair and he's facing the crowd. And I fucking knocked him right off the chairs. I was like, sit down, dick. You know, he stood up on the chairs. He's like doing all the fucking singing like he was Dio. I pushed him right the fuck over.
Well, didn't you tell the story once where you said you broke somebody's arm or something?
Well, I did that too at a Pantera show. I'll tell that one real quick. We were at Pantera. It's Pantera and Skid Row. Skid Row was the headliner. Pantera. This was way long ago, obviously.
Yeah, I was at that one. That was at the Rhodes Arena. Yeah, I was there.
And I was right up on the barrier, and I was like, I had my hands on the barrier, you know, rocking out to fucking Pantera, and some girl came up behind me, and she's like, let me in, you know how the chicks are. They always want to be fucking you to get behind them. And I was like, fuck you, bitch. You know, I'm not letting you in. And she was like, no, let me in. She's like trying to work her way in. Well, I was holding the barrier, and I wasn't letting this bitch in. And she got her arm like underneath my arm. Like if you envision your hand holding a barrier, your left arm, she like got underneath mine and got inside of me, more or less. And she came up and backhanded me in the face, trying to get me to fucking let her in. And then she put her hand on the fucking barrier and grabbed the barrier. So I just dropped down on her fucking arm and snapped it right through her fucking skin. Snap! And fucking she's like, and fucking holding her arm up, and there's fucking blood shooting all over the place. And I was like, time to go!
You missed your chance. You could have let her in front of you. You could have pinned her against the barrier, and then you could have fucked her in her balloon knot.
Right.
I guess I should have been thinking that.
Sure.
I didn't realize
that thought never crossed your mind until John came up with it. So.
Yeah, really. But yeah, no, that is a story that happened. I wonder if old Crooked Arm is still thinking about that show.
Right. Well, anyway, this guy, he's just weebing, wobbling around the whole time, you know, and so like I was telling you, they formed this mosh pit in the middle of the floor, and so these guys, like I said, they're all kind of like skipping and hopping around in a line.
Okay.
And then the people are pushing, you know, and then the people who are crossing through the circle, they're running from one side to the other, and periodically they'd bump into each other. Yeah. Why I didn't see it happen, but somebody got clocked in the head pretty good to where they went down like a sack of potatoes.
Okay.
And they were laying on the floor, and that kind of stopped the nonsense in the little circle. To where they had to bring a stretcher out and wheel this guy off.
They had to bring a stretcher into the pit?
They did. But
that sounds great.
But I could see the guy who got clocked. You could see that he was totally wasted.
Nice.
And so I don't know if somebody whacked him with a beer bottle or if he got clocked in the head with a fist or I don't know what happened, but he was down on the floor for the longest time. And they had to bring in the casino paramedics and wheel a stretcher in there and take him out of the middle of the pit.
Right. So what you're saying is there won't be any more metal shows at fucking that casino.
Well, I thought about that. I thought maybe it wasn't such a good idea that we bring Megadeth in here.
Yeah. No, now you're going to be back to fucking Jimmy Buffett.
Well, Nathan, what did you take away from the show? What was your thoughts on the show?
I mean, those guys are always great. I mean, I think they're a tight band. Like, I mean, you're right. Ellison does look bored most of the time, but I mean, they still sound great. You know, I mean, They put on a good show. I mean, like you said, there wasn't a huge crowd, but you know, they still go out there and do it. And, and the good thing is, like we talked about, they, even though this is still like a continuation of the Super Collider tour, they go out and play the greatest hits. They play one song off Super Collider and one song off 13, and everything else is the songs you know. And so they understand that people don't want to fucking hear. I can't even think of any of those songs off those Super Collider and those last couple albums. But people don't want to hear those songs. They want to hear Peace Sells and Holy Wars and She-Wolf, and that's what they play. You know.
Right.